Shalom Aleichem. We're learning the Sicha of Yud Beis Yud Gimel Tammuz, and it's based on two Farbrengens that Rebbe had, both of them in the year 1977. Tavshin Lamed Zayin. It was Shlach, which is Shabbos Mevarchim, Tammuz, and Shabbos Chukas, which was Tes Tammuz. Now, I'm not going to focus on interesting insights that didn't make it into the Sicha, although there is quite a few. If you look at the beginning of the Sicha on page 308, 309, you'll see very long footnotes. And most of the footnotes are exploring a very interesting thing in the Jewish calendar, in our calendar. And that is, we know we fast on Shiva Tammuz, but the question that we have to ask is, doesn't it say in a pasuk that the first Beis Hamikdash, the walls were broken down on Tes Tammuz? So the Rebbe goes into it, and it's quite intense and hard maybe to really follow in that format because it has footnotes and has footnotes on the footnotes. But in the Farbrengen of Chukas, the Rebbe went at least some of the basic ideas that Rebbe explored. And I just think it's quite fascinating as we get closer to, please God, these days will turn to days of Simcha, but it's interesting to be able to learn this Sicha and learn about the dates. So the Rebbe basically goes like this. It says, in regards to what we spoke about, that it's a Shabbos in Gimel Tammuz and Yud Beis Tammuz, and that year was 50 years because it was Tavshin Lamed Zayin, so Tafresh Pei Zayin, it's 50 years. And it was the same setup because it was the Fidik Rebbe went on Tuesday, so Shabbos was Tes Tammuz, and this Farbrengen was on Tes Tammuz. The Rebbe said there's another thing, and that is what Tes Tammuz is. We don't have to look for the lesson of Tes Tammuz because it says clearly in Torah Shebichsav that in the Sefer of Yirmiyah, the B'chodesh Harvi, the fourth month from Nisan, which is Tammuz, but Tish L'chodesh, in the ninth day of the month, the hunger in the city got too strong. There was no bread for anyone, but and the walls were split. So the Gemara says in Masechus Tainis on the fact that the Mishnah says that the 17th of Tammuz was Gair. That's what the Gemara in Taina says. In the other Mishnah. So what's the pshat? V'ksiv, it says, B'chodesh Haravi b'tish l'chodesh. So was it the 9th day or the 17th day? So the Gemara answers, Loi Kasha, that the question is not a question. Kam b'rishayna, kam b'shniya. Then in the first Beis Hamikdash, it was on Tes Tammuz. And in the second Beis Hamikdash, it was Shiva Tammuz. Now in Shulchan Aruch Orach Chaim, it says like this. Even though it says the fourth month on the 9th day, we don't fast on the 9th, only on the 17th, because on the second Beis Hamikdash was on the 17th, and that's when they made the takana to fast. Because Churban Beis Sheni Chamerlan. For us, it's more serious, the fact that the second Beis Hamikdash is destroyed, because that's the one closer to us. The Rebbe says in the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch that simon we don't have. Other violence, either because he didn't write it or because it was one of the things that never came to us. There was a fire, etc. So the Magen Avraham goes on this Shulchan Aruch and brings from the Ramban, who says that they didn't want to make another Tainus on Tes because they didn't want to make it too hard on the Tzibur. Im Kain, and therefore Baal Nefesh, somebody who's more, wants to do more, should fast also on Tes. But the Magen Avraham then continues. It says in Yerushalmi, it says that even the first Beis Hamikdash was on Shiva Tammuz, but because of the Tzaddis, they made a mistake in the Cheshbon, and they just got discombobbled. Was das ist was steht in Yerushalmi? As das was steht in Pasuk b'Tisha Cheshuv is Kilkul Cheshbonis Yeshkan. That Yerushalmi says that truth is was Shiva Tammuz, and even the fact that it says in the pasuk with Tisha Chodesh Huvka Ba'ir, it's a mix-up. The pasuk's a mix-up. Chodesh is nicht verstanden. Sorry. So the Magen Avraham said, based on the fact that Yerushalmi says that it was on the 17th day, but they made a cheshbon. So he says that means that the Yerushalmi is saying that the pasuk was a mistake. The Chayr is nicht verstanden. There's a general principle that when there's a machlekes between Bavli and Yerushalmi, the halach is kebavli. So why does that Magen Avraham even have to bring the Yerushalmi? Must mean that he was coming to say that unlike the opinion to say that a Baal Nefesh should fast on the 9th, you don't have to because it was nothing. So you should fast on Tes Tammuz if you're a Baal Nefesh, because the Bavli says it was on the 9th. So what's the point of why does the Magen Avraham have to say a Baal Nefesh doesn't have to do it? Because it says in the Shami that didn't happen on the 9th, it happened on the 17th. Why? And the explanation that ever goes on says, we know the general principle that B'shas Meken Zog, when you can say that there's no machlokes between Bavli and Yerushalmi, then it's better to say there's no machlokes. Bis steht dort in der Lashon as a filo oibsis dechek, so much so that it says even if it's hard to make it work, you still try to make it work. So too here, the Marsha says on the fact that the Gemara says that it happened on the first base of English, the 9th of Tammuz, and the second, the 17th. He says like this, and because the second base of English brought us more tzadis, therefore we fast for what happened on the second base of English. And then he brings from the Yerushalmi, and the Yerushalmi says, Yesham, so Marsha brings the Yerushalmi as well. And then he finishes up and says, V'nira lefarish, and we could explain, because the Goyim don't count their calendar by the lunar, by the moon, but only by the sun. So they made the miscalculation. So that's how it got all mixed up. And they didn't allow us to follow the moon. But that was one of the takanas. They didn't allow us to follow the lunar calendar. We only had to follow the solar calendar. So that's what happened. So from here is understood that the fact that Nifkair happened that it happened on the 17th of Tammuz according to the Shami, and that which it says B'Tisha L'Chodesh, that's talking about which Chodesh, the Chama Chodesh. There was the 9th of July. And does seine gewendet Tzades, haben Goyim gewendet zu Kilgal Cheshbonos, and that's what caused the Kilgal Cheshbonos. That it was really the 9th of a different month of the solar calendar, and it was the 17th of the lunar calendar. So therefore, it's not a question on the Yerushalmi, because what he's not negating the pasuk. He's saying that the Gzeda was a minyan alavana, and therefore they couldn't count. They couldn't count. And even when the Tanakh was written at the time, they couldn't count according to the lunar, they counted according to the solar. That's what the Maharsha, the Rebbe explains what the Maharsha is coming to tell us. So we could see it's no stira between, it's not a position between Bavli and Yerushalmi, because the fact that the Yerushalmi says Kilchul Cheshbonos Yeshkan teaches us that when the Bavli said that was on the 9th, it's the 9th of Chama, not the 9th of Levana. And that's why the Magen Avraham brings the Yerushalmi that Mipnei Atzados there was a tos, because he's trying he's bringing the Maharsha to tell us that literally nothing happened on that day in the lunar calendar. Then the Rebbe goes on and to explain how it works according to Rashi, and the Rebbe explains in Chassidus. You can continue, but I think that's quite a fascinating thing to just know as you're coming close to Shiva Tammuz, how the Rebbe explains literally world events, what happened at the time, and the Maharsha, obviously, that is the basis.